US President Donald Trump has announced 26% tariffs on imports from India, which came into full effect today. This follows the baseline 10% tariffs for all countries that were implemented on 5th of April. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar responded to the debate over tariffs imposed by the US President, and he said that India's strategy was clear. It would engage with US on a bilateral trade agreement which could conclude by the fall of this year. Meanwhile, the RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra has said that more than inflation, the central bank is concerned about the impact of US President Trump's tariffs on India's growth. The RBI Governor said that tariff-related uncertainties are also the reason the RBI has lowered India's GDP growth forecast to 6.5%. Now, moreover, the US President Donald Trump said that US is planning to announce a major tariff on pharmaceutical imports soon. India's pharmaceutical sector, one of the most dependent domestic industries on trade with America, could be significantly impacted by this move. On the other hand, amidst rising trade tensions with America, China has urged India to join hands in resisting what it calls US abuse of tariffs. What is going to be the impact of it all for India, and how is India going to navigate this volatile international trade market? Let's start our conversation. Dr. Sharat Kohli, starting off with you about number one, the latest information that after the 26% reciprocal tariffs, it might be the turn of the Indian pharmaceutical products that are exported to America in large percentage and huge quantities are likely to be adversely impacted. How is India going to bear the brunt of the potential reciprocal tariffs on the pharmaceutical?
Good evening, Megha. Good evening to my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. I think this is a full-blown trade war. If you see, what is happening between China and US, is unprecedented. Actually, it happened in Trump 1.0 also, when Mr. Trump came for the first time. We saw some traces of trade war, but this time this looks like a full-blown trade war. And pharmaceuticals, yes, the pharmaceutical industry was celebrating earlier that we have probably been exempted from the from the tariff list, but that was very short-lived because they came out with the comments that look what we are going to do to pharmaceuticals. So obviously pharmaceuticals is not going to be spared. But there are two aspects of it, Megha. One pharmaceutical aspect is that is from the point of view of Indian exporters, all the companies which are, most of them are listed in stock market, from their perspective. Let's take the other perspective, the American perspective. Now, a lot of healthcare in America, for that I know, runs on Indian drugs. This approved FDA. Of time, deep research has been done. After thorough verification and diligence, these drugs have been approved by the US FDA. So therefore, in this situation, whether US FDA can probably afford to impose these tariffs and get them expensive from India, that is a big question mark, which I'm sure President Trump must be having a plan B. Add 26% to the landed cost, and you will see that it becomes very, very expensive in America for the health, as far as healthcare is concerned. Well, and as far as China is concerned, Megha, $400 billion plus is the total amount of imports being done from China by America. $400 billion. $140 billion plus is the export being done from America to China. Now imagine, and the list is very, very long. You were talking of pharmaceuticals from India. But I made today afternoon, it took me 2 hours to make a list of items which China exports to America. It's from toys to high precision machinery, from food products to chemicals, to apparels. There's a whole long list of items. How are the Americans going to manage when 104% tariff comes into effect after tonight? I mean, it's going to be chaos. There are two aspects of these announcements, Megha. Very important point. One is when announcements are being made, the world stock markets are in a turmoil. The headwinds are there now. People are talking of recession. The second and very important aspect is when these tariffs come into effect in the midnight today, and the goods land at that price, you can imagine it will take about 7 days for these goods to reach the consumers in America. And they will get it at the new prices. There is chaos in America. People are emptying out grocery shelves. People are rushing to buy. They are stocking products because they know that they're going to get it expensive. How is President Trump going to manage this inflation? As far as India is concerned, I really don't think India has to worry. India has got, we call in economic language, Megha, we call it as tariff arbitrage. That is 26% on India, 104% on China. Vis-a-vis Vietnam, we still have an advantage of 20%. Vis-a-vis Bangladesh, we have advantage of 11%. India can fill up that gap, which will come in the price difference importing from China, importing from Cambodia, importing from Vietnam. If provided Make in India takes shape, Make in India has to speed up. We need to expand the capacity. We need to improve the quality. If we do that on a war-fitting mega, I am telling you, we can convert this crisis into a huge advantage, I can tell you with conviction.
Ambassador KP Fabian also on the telecast with me. Fabian also on the telecast with me. Ambassador Fabian, what is going to be the impact of the Trump tariffs? Here we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Donald Trump right before the tariffs were imposed. We also saw yesterday that External Affairs Minister Jaishankar spoke to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, in a bid to speeden up the process of signing the bilateral trade agreement, which is likely to happen by the fall of this year. Do you think there is likelihood that rollback of the 26% reciprocal tariffs from the American side is going to happen on the condition that India cuts all interest rates, all tariffs on American products?
Well, I want to make one fundamental point before answering the question. President Trump is embarked on a project which is bound to fail because he wants to get zero. That is, he does not want any trade surplus or rather deficit with any country. It should be equal. Now, to get zero with 63 countries, you do not have to add zero 63 times. You can add certainly positive numbers and negative numbers and get zero. Second point, this search after zero is, mercantilism, pre-Adam Smith economics. Now, coming to your question about what might happen with India, let us look at what has already happened. Today's newspapers have reported that American importers are either asking for a new invoice or they are sort of, taking time to place orders. As the RBI governor said, uncertainty is not good for business. Now, as regards the bilateral trade negotiations being concluded early enough for India to get relief, well, let's hope so. But my reckoning is that that deal will be signed only when President Trump comes to India for the Quad Summit, the date for which are yet to be determined. So we are going to have this uncertainty and it will do considerable harm to us. Now, the other point made by the previous speaker that, we have got less tariff imposed on us than on some other countries, therefore we can benefit. Well, it's a good point, but frankly, between you and me, this system of tariffs is not going to last. It is going to be changed, and China's, sort of retaliation, partial, modest, and President Trump's re-retaliation, neither modest nor partial, well, that is going to play out. So let us see. And also the European Union, let us see, because this cannot last for a long time. The whole thing has to be, what shall I say, brought to some order, or there will be trade war raging, which will ruin everyone. Between India and America, there is no trade war because India has not retaliated. Well, I suppose that is the best way to handle a person like President Trump.
Okay.
But there is one point I want to emphasize. India has a clout of being the largest or one of the largest weapons purchasers from the United States. India should quietly, confidentially, diplomatically, not through the media, make use of that. And President Trump is the most enthusiastic.
Gautam Mukherjee, I'm going to come to you. In talking about, first of all, the adverse impact on markets globally, and what is the likelihood that they are going to stabilize and how soon will they stabilize? What is it going to take for the stock markets to come to some semblance of normalcy? Are there alternative supply chains that are already in talks. There was already an announcement that was made a couple of weeks ago, about Xi Jinping meeting with his South Korean and Japanese counterparts to sign a trilateral trade deal. Is something in the offing, with India also being an important strategic partner when it comes to dealing with Asian nations and even Europe for that matter?
Well, I don't think India is going to be signing any Hindi Chini bye-bye deals with China. We've been there and we have been very badly done by. China has opposed every Indian initiative on the international stage, whether it is joining the nuclear suppliers group, whether it's joining the UNSC, whether it is creating various terrorists into international terrorists. China has never helped us. There is no reason for us to do so now. Now, to the extent, if you notice today's news, BYD, the Chinese car manufacturers, electric car manufacturers, wanted to establish a factory in India, invest $1 billion. We said no to BYD, we said yes to Tesla. So this is the trend. As far as pharmaceuticals go, a number of the key Indian pharmaceutical companies already have manufacturing operations in America, particularly those which have been the drugs which have been approved by the FDA. They actually make them over there, and this will probably be expanded. We have enough of a domestic market. 98% of our consumption is domestic. So yes, we have 773 billion worth of exports all over the world, of which America is the biggest trading partner. We have a very modest deficit of between 30 and $45 billion, depending on the time at which you estimate this. And we can definitely get rid of most of it via various purchases from America, including defense, as the ambassador said, and of course oil and other items from America, including cars and so on. We're looking at a 10% on cars, not only for America, but for the EU, with whom we are also negotiating an FTA. This pressure is the only way India seems to reform. We did it in 1991 under pressure from the World Bank, and we are doing it now under pressure from the Trump administration. It is excellent news for Indian consumers across the board, and protecting Indian industry with large tariffs, high tariffs, is a recipe for low competition and inefficiency. So as such, we have very little to fear. It's, it takes us months and years to negotiate.
No, but if that was the case, then why would the markets completely plummet? We saw the ugly Monday, not just across the Asian markets, it also adversely impacted India. So obviously, when there are industries within the country who have been traditionally for decades together exporting to America and other countries, and suddenly you have these trade barriers, you will have to bring about alternative supply chains, alternative markets for India, for the Indian products, Indian goods and services to be exported to other countries. Now, whether it is going to be China or it is going to be Europe is something that will have to be decisively, acted upon by the government.
Megha, the point is, we are not, a lot of people seem to think that alternative markets are going to take up the slack. My own belief is that you've got to negotiate this FTA on very favorable terms very favorable terms to America as well as ourselves, and export principally to the United States. They are our biggest trading partner. Now, as far as the stock markets go, China is going down, and China is only stemming the rot by putting in a lot of government money into its own stock markets. As far as India goes, we lost 3% on the Monday. We made back half of it on the Tuesday. What we are losing today is a normal working day type of 400 points down sort of thing. It is nothing much to worry about. Certain sectors like the IT and pharmaceuticals indeed have the jitters today, but this will sort out. IT, as long as it gets away from the body shopping and actually does some actual technological innovation, has a good future. If it doesn't, then it was in trouble even before the tariffs began. As far as pharmaceuticals go, I'm sure they'll bounce back bigger and better than ever. So India is not terribly affected. As for the rest, let them look out for their own, because this concept of a free lunch has been challenged most roundly, and they are not going to get their free lunch anymore. We in India understand this, and fortunately, most of our economy is domestic and automatically stable.
Similarly for China, and Akash, if you could shed more light, because the amount of exports that China makes to America constitutes only 2% of its GDP. Being the second largest population in the entire world, do you think China can absorb the tariff shock of 104% levied by the Trump administration?
Very interesting. Neither can China absorb nor can US absorb. Basically, we are always talking that against that country tariffs have been launched. No, none of the countries is going to pay that tariff. None of the suppliers are going to pay this tariff. The tariffs have to be paid ultimately by the consumer. So what we are talking about is, for US consumers, inflation of 104%. So what it means, high inflation, super high inflation. And post that, what's going to happen is, super high inflation means consumption also being hit. If consumption is hit, tax collection also would be hit. Now, many of the exports which China does to US are not something which has to be consumed. There are raw materials which has to be consumed by the industry. So industrial production has to be hit. Now, see the other thing. One thing which needs to be discussed is, China has plans. China has plans to ban what? China has plans to ban all Hollywood movies. Now, do you know? US wouldn't be knowing which is the biggest market for Hollywood movies. It's not US, it's not Europe, it's China. So if China by the evening bans all Hollywood movies, where are we? It would be much more than a trade war, because then who would lose? Hollywood would lose. There's some big productions which are on the way. Then what would happen is, China also is going to immensely lose, because the recreation industry, the entertainment industry is not only movies. There are so many things, so many people connected to movie industries, so many other things which go along with that industry, whether it's eateries, restaurants, many other things. So I think the trade war can intensify up to a lot extent. So what I think is, why it has been postponed till midnight is that perhaps prior to midnight, there may be some solution may be worked out. Otherwise, why haven't the tariffs been launched? Immediate effect. So it is more of a threat. China also, I think we expect a counter threat, and there could be some solution, because these things are not workable. These things are not workable at all. See, when we spoke about 34% tariffs, till my organization, akashindal.in, I have added up the numbers. They made some sense, some logic, but 104% by any means does not make any sense in any manner.
Okay.
All economics would fail. All commercial calculations would fail. All taxation planning would fail. Household budgets anyway would not at all come closer to, calculation. Now see, Hollywood, because why they have China as the biggest market is, because see, in US you don't have the numbers. By numbers I mean population. Where's the population? Population is either there in China or India. Now in India, we have an entertainment industry of our own. Whether it's Bollywood, Tollywood, we have South Indian movies have their own industries. But China, it relies heavily on Hollywood. for its entertainment industry. So
Okay.
things are going
All
to be
right.
drastically
Okay.
bad.
But I want to look at the larger picture. And Anand Mittal, who is a former creative director to Republican US Senator Mitch McConnell, also on the telecast in his office, is also on the telecast with me. Anand Mittal, situations such as this, do you think there is a need to hasten up the bilateral trade agreement between India and America? Perhaps August 2025 may be too long a period, which will cause repercussions not just for India but for America as well when it comes to bilateral trade between both countries.
I mean, thank you for having me. I think certainly there's a need of the hour to have those bilateral meetings and constant talks. I don't know if we will get one by August. I think it will most likely take the whole year, and that will involve some pain. But with respect to the other panelists who said that people are running to the grocery stores, I don't think that's happening. I live in America. I haven't seen any panic yet. The panic is at Wall Street and other industries. So if Hollywood is panicking because they're shut off from the Chinese market, I mean, certainly Donald Trump has no love lost for people from Hollywood. Certainly he would like to see American industry succeed, but China itself has shut off or selectively used its power of its box office to cut off films from America. So I think studios have gotten used to the idea that China is no longer open to them. Russia has already been shut off to them since the Ukraine war. So I think that's not a huge calculation for American industries like Hollywood. Certainly for other industries, the stock market was down on the day of the announcement, and then now it's rallied back up the other day. We've seen a V-shaped recovery. We'll see how that maintains and how that continues, because yes, it's true that uncertainty is not good for the stock market, but I think Donald Trump has been very selective and very precise in what he's doing here. For example, the pharmaceutical tariffs are not aimed at India, they're aimed at China, because it's sending deadly fentanyl, precursor raw materials, to Canada and Mexico. So a lot of these moves are aimed at China. And so the announcement from China that, other countries should be friendly with us and let's do something against the US, I mean, that again just proves him right that this is really designed to show who are the friends of America and who are the enemies of America. And certainly Donald Trump has no love lost for Europe. So, I think it's to India's benefit. For example, Foxconn has announced that it's going to shift iPhone production to India, higher production to India, to bypass the tariffs. I think that's a good thing for India. I think it's a good thing for America, and that's exactly what Donald Trump wants. He wants friendly countries to come to America, make those bilateral deals, and not make any kind of side trilateral or multilateral deals, because those are the deals that Trump feels have been unfair to India or to America. He feels that the WTO has been unfair to America, and so that's why he's doing these tariffs, because then he forces other countries to come to America. And yes, some of it's a little bit humiliating. Nobody wants to go to America just to hat in hand asking for tariffs to be lowered, but I think it depends on the relationships that Trump has personally with the leaders of those countries, and how he feels those countries have treated America. And I think, although he has said that yes, India has treated America unfairly, he does have a good personal relationship with Prime Minister Modi. The team that is there on the national security team, the foreign affairs team, are all pro-India. Mike Waltz, for example, was part of the India caucus. So I don't think any of the moves that they're making are aimed at India or are aimed at, sort of hurting Indian industries. And there's a lot of room for negotiation. There's a lot of room for friendliness on the tariff from India versus, say, China or other countries that Trump feels has been unfair.
Okay, all right. I only have as much time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.